please welcome our distinguished guest, Natalia Vtyurina, who has an amazing career so far. And she's a PhD in biophysics, and she received her PhD from the Bionanoscience department at Delft University of Technology. And today she actually manages 3 different activities. She is an associate consultant in Pharma group, and as well as the head of the CRS France and BeNeLux local chapter. And next to that, she's also an entrepreneur with her own business, and she's expert in stretching, which is an extremely interesting combination. So I'm very curious, Natalia, about your secrets, about how to develop a career and develop yourself. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation, and thank you so much for coming today and sharing with us. So first, a question I would like to ask you is how it all started, and like why did you choose this research topic for your PhD, and if you could tell us what was your mindset and how you arrived at these 3 different amazing jobs at the same time.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Natalia, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure for me to join the webinar of your company. And I know you do a great job by also combining quite many things, and you are mentoring people and you share your experience and you train them in the job search. So that's really, really valuable. And I think it's a hot topic for many early career scientists nowadays. And I'm happy to share my experience because on LinkedIn, on many other sources, a lot of people are approaching me and actually asking me this question. So if I can elaborate more about my career, and I'm happy that now I can record it and refer everybody to this great webinar and the great discussions. So yeah, hi everyone. I will just try to be short in a way about my introduction so that we have a little bit more room for your questions, guys. So the questions are more precious, and I would like to zoom in exactly on the thing that you want me to talk about. So I will just start briefly my introduction back from like 8 years back when I moved to the Netherlands from Russia, and I was trained as a fundamental physicist in Russia, and I was looking for international experience, preferably in science, so that I could get a degree, a scientific degree, and pursue for at least 4 or 5 years a career in academia. But back on that time, I already knew that I don't want to stay in academia. And after actually doing my PhD, I was even more sure that that I don't want to do that. And I will maybe talk about it a bit more if you have an interest and ask me why I didn't like academia and why I wanted to prefer industry versus academia from the beginning. But for now, I leave it open. If you're interested, just ask this question. I started my PhD as Natalia mentioned, in TU Delft. It's a technical university, and I was doing biophysics. So it's the Department of Bionanoscience. They were studying the single molecule interaction. So I started with very, very small items, very, very small DNA molecules and proteins. So nothing about the complex biological systems, and but still quite interesting front research. But what I realized by the end of my PhD that my research will not be taken as applicable research, so it will stay fundamental. And I graduated with a good success. I graduated with 2 publications in PNAS and Cell. I really like it, but I still had this feeling after the graduation that my research was done, but I'm not sure at all that anybody will pick it up and bring it to the level that is useful for the society. So that brought me basically into this path of looking at a job in the industry, and I was looking for a job for 7 months after my PhD, and it was very difficult, so I couldn't find any, and all industrial companies to which I applied rejected me. So that was a little bit a surprise because I didn't expect my future after PhD being like that. So I thought that the most difficult part is over and now I can finally enjoy my career. But that was actually a mistake to think like that because I realized that, yeah, I'm unemployed and I don't know how to approach industries. They don't want me. And that was a little bit of frustration, and I decided, okay, if it doesn't work, I better just secure my future by continuing my work in academia and just try to switch the field a little bit from biophysics, which is very fundamental, to something more applicable. And my next choice of the position became the Groningen University. And I moved there from Delft to Groningen for 2 years of my postdoctoral research in the biomedical field, and be more specifically nanomedicine field. So the controlled drug delivery and nanoparticles. So that was the field. And I felt like it's a more applicable field. And this is, if I will try my application to industry again after my postdoc, I will have some added value to my resume, that I worked at the Department of Pharmacy and I was working on the pharmaceuticals as well, in a way like in the close departments in a university medical center. And this has sort of worked out. So after 2 years, at least I could add a line on my CV that I worked in this forefront field of nanomedicines that have a great potential to become a future medicine and maybe at some point complement or even replace the conventional medicine. So I really enjoyed it. And while I was doing my postdoc, I was attending the conferences, and it was the same as during PhD. So as a scientist, you're supposed to attend conferences. But what I realized, the difference between my previous field and this field, was the fact that pharmaceutical industry in which I wanted to work for the pharmaceutical industry, and they were attending the same conferences as I. So being in this field, it allowed me, entering this field, it allowed me to expand my network towards the companies and companies representatives that potentially could be my future employers. And this is what was very good to see and to know and grow my network that way, but it still didn't give me a security that actually somebody is still interested in my profile. So my search of job was very long in terms of years, and just because of I was looking for a job, I was collecting a lot of people around me from the same similar field or from others. And apparently, when I realized that I have such a huge network, I built it up just because I was looking for a job. It's really enough to create a society of people in 4 European countries who basically know me and who potentially could join me. And when I just accidentally, in one of the conferences, I bumped into the president of the Controlled Release Society last year, 2 years ago, actually it was. And then she introduced me to this association, and at some point I realized that this association has a lot of different local chapters, because they're located in headquarters in USA. And then they have a lot of local chapters all over the world, and they don't have any in the Netherlands. I was very surprised about that. And then I started to dig further and further, and when I realized that there is opportunity actually really to use all of my network to establish this association, I decided just to take this opportunity. And at the end, by the end of the postdoc, I ended my project, and I realized I was elected to be president of this association at the end, and yeah, that was amazing feeling that actually I could establish something like that. But unfortunately, still I had to spend 5 months of my unemployment looking for a job. So even this large network, it still didn't give me the end. I didn't achieve the end goal, even though like I was so successful in other fields. But it was really good that this being the president of this association gave me a lot of experience and a lot of things I could try. So that was the main bullet point in my CV. So it strengthened my CV. And again, if we look back on my PhD in biophysics, it was very fundamental. And now, by the end of my postdoc, I had a biomedical experience. I was the president of the local chapter, so my candidature was already automatically more attractive for industries rather than it was after my PhD. But still, like 5 months of unemployment, it was with me, and during this time, I attended a lot of interviews, and it again gave me a lot of experience. What I'm surely I can say now that I'm never afraid. I will never be afraid to be jobless because I know how to look for a job. And eventually that happened, so that I found a job. And after a few offers in parallel, I accepted the job as associate consultant at Pharma Group. And this is consultancy firm, so I completely left the lab and the bench. So I entered a new environment. So now I work in the pharmaceutical industry as I wanted. And in my role, basically, I consult different clients about all of the details and all of the requirements that they can make during the whole life cycle of the drug product. So if you may know that drug products, usually to put it in the market, it's like 10, 12 years it might take. That's why we still don't have a vaccine for COVID-19, because it takes really long to develop. We provide the services to the companies in all of the stages during 12 years. It could be discovery development, it could be preclinical phase, clinical trials, or marketing. So we help different clients basically to compile with the regulations, etc. So if you have any questions about exactly what my role and what I do, you are welcome. But with this, I would like to wrap up my short, long introduction, and happy to take some specific questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for this introduction. And I have to tell everyone, like, you can ask questions all the time in the chat anytime, and we will address those questions. And I have a first question to Natalia. So I'm interested in this initial period after your PhD that you described. It was 7 months, right? That you couldn't find a job. And I was curious when you were talking about it, whether you already had a PhD title back then, or you were actually preparing for PhD defense. Because I'm asking because I heard that from a lot of PhD candidates that a lot of prospects on the job market change exactly at the point when you get the title. So as long as you don't have it, somehow you're transparent to the recruiters, and all of a sudden when you get it, then the interviews start. You get all of a sudden noticed and invited to interviews. So that's my question for you. So I would like to ask you if you have any insight why this was the case, like you had such a good education, and why specifically you think that you were not successful back then.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And first of all, yes, I did had a degree by that time. So I started my search actually way before. I could say that my search then in total was around 12 or 15 months if I take the time before my PhD, because I started way earlier than I graduated. And when I graduated, basically my expectations, first of all, were quite different. So I was thinking that my degree will add something towards my CV that I will look more attractive for the job market. But apparently, indeed, that's turned the other way around. And that's what most PhDs, they don't realize, that sometimes for certain industries, I'm not saying about like R&D departments specifically, but R&D departments are rather small, and there are way more opportunities in industry. And for that one, usually you don't need a PhD. So by getting your PhD, you of course it's an advantage. So I never regretted that I get a PhD, and I hope you also will never do that. But it sort of puts some limits on the number of positions to which you can apply, because if you apply to the positions where the master's degree is needed, you are overqualified. But if you look at the positions, then you will realize that actually there are not many for PhDs, because the next step is that you have 10 years experience. So there is this gap between you being overqualified, but at the same time, if you want to have like a senior position, but you have like 5 or 8 or 10 or 15 years of experience. So But I think in my case, the reason was like not only the PhD title, because again, if you have a PhD title, you just have a harder time to identify where the positions, where you can find these positions that are suitable for you. So you can be successful with your PhD, but you have to focus first on the search of what do you want, what kind of company, what kind of position, how many positions per year do they have for PhDs. You know, if you start your job search in advance, you can identify, if you target one company, for example, you can see what are the chances for you to get there, because you could see and track how many positions are open for your level. And but in my case, I think I attribute my unsuccess in finding the job to two factors. And one is my fundamental background. So I don't want to scare you, but by my story, because actually what I wanted was quite unrealistic. So I was a physicist back in education who was trying to enter pharmaceutical industry. And this is not like a very straightforward wish, I would say, right? So I made myself very challenging to do that. So that's why I think that was more difficult than it could be, because if you, for example, have a PhD in pharma, then there are less questions of the companies if you want to enter pharmaceutical industry. So for me, it was first that, and the second factor was the economical crisis. So this is something you don't realize, you don't think it will affect you, but apparently if it's going on, it will hit you hard. And in my case, exactly the same year, in 2016, there were not many positions. And I thought it's something wrong with me, but apparently that was just something wrong with the environment and with the opportunities. But apart of that, it also was another factor which is actually just specific to, again, my case, that there are many PhDs graduated exactly the same year, and they were more than the previous year. So the year when I graduated, it appeared to be a lot of competitors on the market. And again, I didn't know about that until a few years passed, and then I analyzed what happened, and I realized that, okay, that was the factor.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree with this. And like with the job market, it's a bit like with the housing market. It goes in waves, and sometimes the job market is dominated by job seekers, and sometimes it's dominated by the employers. And depending on that, depending on the economical situation, one side of the other or the other can dictate conditions. And it's really, indeed, sometimes it's hard. The same like with investment, you have to spot the right timing. Have the right timing to get in, and the same with the job market. Totally agree with that. But we have questions from the chat.
Yeah.
So there is a question: how do you feel in pharmaceutical industry?
Well, of course, after working 7 months for my company, I cannot really tell you about pharmaceutical industry and how do I really feel there, because it's too little time. But so far, I do like my job, and it's really diverse, and I have a lot of clients. So the difference basically between if I would work for pharmaceutical industry for specific company on specific product, that would be a bit more different experience rather than working as a consultant, because I work with many different pharmaceutical industries and companies, and I work a little bit with one, a little bit with another, on one project to another project. So it's very diverse, but I like it. I think pharmaceutical industry in general, if you ask me, it's a very concise, it's consistent, because we work with medical products, with drugs that actually we should take care about the quality of patients, and it should be always number one in the list, whatever product you produce. And I like it. I like this ideology, and I think it's very important that people have the right drugs on the market, and I feel very much engaged with this industry.
Yeah, that's definitely you produce something, right? In IT, there are so many of these scammy projects that they just have this premise of creating a new platform and new innovative solution. And in the end, nothing really happens other than getting money from investors, and that's it. And that's the end of the project. And I can see that in pharma, at least there must be there is some discovery that is involved, and it's like you cannot really sell anything without having a working product. So that's actually good. Okay, so we have more questions, which is great. The next question is from Natalia. For you, what is the big difference of the work environment in the industry versus academia?
Yeah, so apparently, to be honest, I don't feel that it's really two completely big differences, right? So you work with people, you have a certain structure, you work usually in a team, in a group. This is all the same. I mean, and you have a supervisor in academia, you have a manager in industry. So in that sense, the work environment is the same. Of course, like in university, in academia, while many people like it, it's just because you have more flexible hours. So you can sort of shape your day more or less how it's up to you. In industry, it's a less practice like that, but I'm not saying that it's not possible, because again, if you work for a big manufacturer and corporate, usually there you have less flexibility. So you have to come to the working hours that are set, like between 9 and 5, you have to be there. But if you work for consultancy like I do, I have actually a lot of flexibility in my hours, and it's just certain hours that I have to make for my clients. And when do I make these hours? It doesn't matter for anyone. So it's just there is a deadline and I have to meet it. But my client is not going to call me and check if I'm working today on this project or not, because I might have 5 projects running right at the same time, and I have to just split my hours between them. And how do I do that? That is pretty flexible. I would like just to emphasize that the environment is actually, in a way, it's the same. How it's structured and how people communicate is completely the same. It's still the same values are valuable when you do the teamwork. But from company to company, from your one university to another university, or one supervisor to another supervisor, of course, you have some differences on how exactly it is arranged.
Okay, great. Maybe I should ask you this question in 5 years as well. Maybe more differences will come out. Okay, next question is, do you get any industrial support from CRS local chapter?
Well, we don't get any like industrial support. I don't know what exactly do you mean by support, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up the network with industries, which are often pharmaceutical industry. So it's exactly the sector where I work for. And what is actually the advantage of me being a president of the CRS local chapter is just because I'm anyway rotating in this environment, and there is like my personal professional interest in building up the relationship with industry that can be very useful for the local chapter that I'm running. So at the end, I think it just everything for me is now interconnected. So my job is connected a little bit with local chapter is connected to other companies, and I also work for different clients. So in that sense, we don't have any support from outside, I would say, but I try to build this support from industry to the local chapter also myself.
Okay, and actually, I'm not sure if everyone here actually knows what CRS is, because maybe it would be also good, like in like 2 sentences, explain what CRS organization, like what it stems from and what it stands for, and maybe that would also need an introduction. How do you feel about it, Natalia?
Yeah, I already mentioned. I think you also mentioned in your introduction that I'm a president of the Controlled Release Society, and as I mentioned, since I was looking for a job, I gained a lot of network, and this network was enough actually to build this association from scratch. So this is a scientific association that's called Controlled Release Society, and they focus on targeted drug delivery, nanomedicines, and drug release. And this association is just, if you're a PhD, usually you're assigned to sort of certain association that combines all the researchers, leading researchers in your field. So for me, that was a Controlled Release Society. If you're in a different field, of course, it can be different. And it was not my first association that I was trying to join. There were many, and I was deliberately looking for volunteering opportunities in this association, because this is what allows you to grow your network. So if you commit some time and invest some time on these non-benefit organizations that are specific for your scientific field, it's really amazing how many people you can get learn. And not only to learn, not only you can like gain your network, but you can also if you're volunteering, that means that people know what do you contribute, how do you work, so how to work with you, like how fast do you reply on your emails, like these kind of things. So how just your attitude is shown there. And when you're looking for a job, this is actually can be very helpful, because people don't have to judge you by your CV, but people can judge you by your appearance and by your contribution to these volunteering opportunities. So I was just simply looking for that, and this controlled release local chapter is just as I mentioned, this is the local chapter of the huge association in my field that I decided to run and to start it and to run.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And so we have a next question from the participants, from Eileen. Hi, I'm Eileen, a grad student studying in the US. My question is how you made the transition from research to consulting. As a student, how can we prepare ourselves for the job as a consultant? Very good question. Thank you.
Yeah, so I was not actually deliberately looking for consulting job. Nevertheless, I was quite interested in that, and many people were saying that I should try this, because when I was looking for a job, especially after my PhD, I had no clue to which exactly specific field I should focus on and I should look for. And the consultancy, that's what consultancy offers, is basically this the opportunities to try different projects from different angles and try to work with different clients, and then or at the end you might have some preferences towards the projects or towards the companies to work with. So I didn't look for this deliberately, and that was one of the other positions that I was considering. But at the end, again, I liked it for that reason, that it gives you a lot of diversity in terms of work, so I can learn a lot. But how to prepare? I don't think you can prepare for that unless you know exactly the position. So when you have a description of the position in front of your screen, then you can prepare. But otherwise, you should prepare for hard working. But how do you prepare for that, right? You relax. Right. So in that sense, I would just start with the looking for companies, first of all, companies, because there are many. There are like this consultancy like a McKinsey or Accenture, or a KPMG, these are like global leaders, and to work there is a little bit different than to work for medium-sized consultancy company like I have. And actually consultancy there are so many different business models for consultancy that you can prepare yourself by actually learning who is in the market, what kind of jobs, what they consult for, because some consultancy, like we consult on the manufacturers and how to manufacture the drug. And McKinsey, for example, they consult companies on the corporate strategy. So it's completely two different things. So you cannot say that consultancy is something, has a one definition. So there are many business models, and you have to see what kind of business models suit you. Because if it's Accenture or McKinsey, you have to be ready to work 60 hours per week. If it's medium-sized company, that could be more flexible. So you have to see what do you like, what do you want, and then look for the companies, look then for the position that they offer. And when you have a position in front of yourself, then you start to prepare for this job based on the description.
Actually, I have a question, since I'm very curious what associate consultant specifically means, as I know that there are different types of consultants, and actually, honestly, you're the first person I meet that has that particular title. So can you explain what does the associate stand for?
Yeah, associate, it's basically, there is associate scientist position. This is very, very common position in industry, pharmaceutical industry, in R&D department. So associate, that means you have a lot, you need a lot of years to grow. In a way that you have like associate, you have a senior, you have principal, consultant. So associate is just one of the sort of level of seniority that describes your position, I would say. And different companies actually use a different name for that. It could be just consultant, and sometimes they prefer not to differentiate between who just started or who is already experienced. So it really depends on the company. And for example, with the same PhD degree, I could also apply for a senior position in different companies. So it's actually the title. It matters when you start to work in the company, but when you search for the job, it doesn't have you shouldn't be afraid to apply for senior positions.
Okay, so do I understand correctly that this is a form of grading the like?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a bit similar in academia with grading professors, like assistant, associate, and full professor. So it's like a kind of similar system to kind of indicate how senior you are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from. I'm sorry, my Indian is very poor, so I cannot spell this name. But are you consulting for India and for Indian pharmaceutical industries?
Oh well, just from top of my head, I cannot remember any pharmaceutical industry, the company that we consult for that is located in India. But I know that we do have some consults with Dr. Reddy, which is an Indian company that produces some generics. So in that sense, that's possible. But I think it's only one example. But we don't focus on Indian market. It's mostly European, because we try to support the companies in the application to the regulator, to the authorities, basically, and it's very country specific. And then you have to have a specialist who could submit this application to the authorities, and it's very specific to Europe. If it's Europe, if it's USA, if it's India, Russia, etc., it's different.
Okay, and I have a question that is a little bit different, a different type of question. So, when you're networking, do you have some rules for that? So, do you have some criteria of how to select people to network with?
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that you should do, is to select people, because most of the people, they don't do that, right? So most of the people, they think it should go in a natural way, and then you attend the conference, you meet people and talk. But no, because the conferences are rather short. So if it's one-day conference, you cannot talk to hundreds or thousands of people, depending on the conference, of course. So that's perhaps the only homework I do, is that I'm trying to check who is attending the conference and who has a particular interest for me and who I'm going to approach. And then I'm trying to set the goal. For example, I'm going to approach in these conferences 5 people or one person. It doesn't matter. So because many people actually have a frustration after attending the conferences because of that reason, because they think in this environment there are so many people, and they talked with some people, but then they realize it actually was not useful connection for them, and then they have a frustration that, oh my god, the whole day or 3 days of the conference is over, but I don't benefit. I don't feel like I benefit from attending. And this is why, because if you just go there and you think by chance you will meet out of 1,000 people the person you want, no. You have to really know and do your homework. It's like many scientists, they do this for topics. So many scientists, they do look for the conference when they for the sessions and the specific that they want to attend. But you have to, if you plan to network, you have to do exactly the same, but with people.
It's also, I think, sometimes good to be able to distinguish, let's say, in a room where you don't know anyone. Sometimes it's good to learn whom to actually approach, because It's
Yeah.
often that the person who has real impact and really actually decides about everything is not the most loud person in the room, but it's the person standing just behind them, and like the calm person standing somewhere in the corner and just looking around at everyone. And like I also learned that that's not necessarily the loudest person, like the alpha male, like in the room. Is
Yeah.
the person that has like the most connections and you should actually approach, but sometimes it's like the peaceful person standing in the corner. So it's also good to, I think, learn some rules there in the situations when you don't have that prior information.
Yeah, but it's also you not only have to select people, and I mean not only select by names, but you have to really read what they're going to present or check their LinkedIn, because to start a conversation you need to talk, and usually you approach someone and you start talking about this person and asking like, oh, you had such a great experience, or you were at this conference like last year, or something like that. So you have to create this common space first, and this needs some time.
Right. That requires practice for sure as well. Okay, we have questions in the chat, so let's move to Eileen's question. As a pharmaceutical industry consultant, do you think it would be helpful working in the industries for couple of years before doing consulting? Can freshly graduated PhD students find a consultant job?
Yeah, I mean, everything is possible, and I think it's useful. Any industrial experience is useful for any future industrial experience. So in that sense, I don't have advice what to start with. It could be both. And it's just understand that again, consultancy, being a consultant for pharma industry is completely different concept than working for pharmaceutical industry on specific product. So in that sense, one can help another in any way. But in my case, why I decided to do first consultancy, because I didn't know from all of the opportunities that exist, what exactly I like the most, what kind of job with an industrial environment I want to have. So where I want to be in 5 years, etc. And then I realized that if I make this investment on the consultancy now, I can learn a lot about different projects, and this knowledge I can then apply to certain field. And I took this path. But for example, I've seen also some people who were doing the vice versa. So they were working for a single product and they were happy about it, but at some point they realized, okay, I'm a specialist in this single product. I want to learn more, and I can bring my experience on that product and apply it to another product. And then they go to consultancy because this is what allowed. So it could be both ways, and just depending on what you really like. I just advise you to start with anything. And if you don't like it, you can always leave, nobody's holding you. So you can just try it. And if you don't like it, you just move on. And it could be 1 year, it could be a couple of years experience. But I think the most important for PhDs is to get this industrial experience in general. So just this the first job, you get it, and then you will understand where to move on. Just try to get any kind of job, I would say, and then see what you like. And can freshly graduate PhD students find consult? Yeah, sure. Yeah. You can. Yeah. It's difficult. It's a bit more difficult because of the reasons I explained, because of your title, but it's possible.
Okay, great. The next question is from Monica. Do you have any specific strategy while you were looking for a job before as well as after the postdoc?
Well, I did have more strategy, I would say, after my postdoc rather than after my PhD. So after my PhD, again, I was just in this illusion that I will find a job very quickly. And of course, my strategy was damaged by that way of doing, but after postdoc, I was already prepared that it might be a bit more difficult than I expected. So my strategy was to understand what do I want. And everybody who is asking me actually where to start with that's where you start. So think about it. What do I want? And try to make arguments. Why do I want this job against another job? Why do I want to work for biotech rather than for pharma? Why maybe I would like to work for medical devices? I mean, if in my field, if you're like with my background, then you ask these kind of questions first. And if you're in a different field, of course, you just take a few options and then you choose. This is the first thing that you have to understand for yourself. And then based on your answer, what do I want? Then you start looking for the companies, for the location. So you think, okay, which location do I want to be? Do I want to move or not? And as more specific you are in your mind about the specific location and country, as easy it is. Because the most difficult when you look for a job is to focus and to find this certain like channel where all of these opportunities are. And so you basically, after you decide what do you want, you decide like about the location, about the company. And you can be driven by location or you can be driven by the company. It doesn't matter. And then you look, okay, in this company, what kind of positions do they have? And then you track basically on the weekly or monthly basis, or you make keywords and set the alerts so that these companies send you the positions when they appear. And then in like 1 or 2, 3 months, you can get a picture actually what kind of position they usually have, and if they have a positions for PhDs for your level. And then you can read the description of the positions and understand what exactly they are. And once you have like some sort of overview of the available positions, then you start to think, but among of all of these roles, what would be a best fit for me? And then you start over, what do I want? So it's basically about the circle, about opportunities and your desire.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And I have a question about your recent few years and especially the PhD time and maybe even before. So do you have any, I wouldn't say regrets, but is there anything that you would do differently if you had the chance?
Yeah, I'm usually not such a person who looks back and regrets. I think everything what happened in my career and how it happens is really it's fine. I mean, I learned. If you learn out of your failure, you know, it's the best you can do. But I think, yeah, I already mentioned this a few times today that after my PhD, I was really thinking it would be much easier, you know, and that's what made me frustrated because my expectations didn't meet the reality, and that was really hard, you know, to recover after that. So I would say, yeah, I would do differently. That I wouldn't expect, I wouldn't expect anything. And just explore.
And actually, yeah, I have exactly the same experience. And for me, that ended up with writing a whole book. So it's, I can totally, yeah, I totally agree. But like, do you think that also like being an expat changed something? Do you think it would be a little bit easier if you were Dutch, or don't you think, or you think that doesn't really matter here?
I think it does matter. There is a certain competition, of course, between the expats and between local people. And in terms of the language, that's basically where expats cannot compete. And I totally understand the companies if they make the decision, if they see the two candidates with exactly the same qualifications and expertise. I totally understand they will prefer the native speaker just simply for the reason that maybe your clients they work and they prefer this language, you know, and then you have to know it. So it's basically one of the points where you can make your CV stronger is definitely the language, and that would help to you know, like to outcompete with the locals.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, we have a question from Payman, who is asking, I'm a master student in nanomedicine that works on co-delivery of drugs by nanoliposomes for dermal purposes. Mm-hmm. As a professional, I have a professional question. How do you think about this field of research for future in industry? And in your opinion, how I can enter this industry?
Yeah, I know. I think this topic is very exciting, and there are a lot of companies that work and they use liposomes. And one of the companies that's come to my mind is the one the cosmetic company actually that I'm a big fan of, and I'm using it, and it's Sysderma. Sysderma company is in Spain, in Valencia, and last year the Controlled Release Society annual meeting was there in Valencia, and the whole conference was there. And I had a pleasure to meet actually people who work for this company and who are presenting their research. So I think there is definitely a future of the application of the nanoliposomes in dermal industry, and it could be, you could also consider these cosmetic firms like L'Oreal, for example. They are really large. It's a really big company. It's one of the biggest, and they have a quite large R&D department where they have a money investment, and they do investments on this like novel type of research. So it's just really a lot out there, but there are also a lot of course, pharmaceutical industry for dermal application. So I think it's gonna this type of work and research. I think it's promising, and you can just try it by looking at least at this company.
Mm-hmm. And I would actually like to, I mean, I couldn't not ask this question, like knowing you and knowing me. So, like, I know that you are quite entrepreneurial as well. So, next to your all these activities that you've mentioned, you also started your own business, and I would like to ask you a few questions about that because it's quite impressive, and especially given that this is a business in a different field. So you have like 8 years experience in stretching, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point you decided to also convert your passion into a business. So can you tell us a little bit about that story and how it happened, and why did you take this decision, and what is your plan for the future with your stretching classes?
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, that's for people who don't know what a stretching is. It's basically a sport discipline that is quite popular in Eastern Europe and especially in Russia. So I brought it from Russia, and stretching, this is increasing of your flexibility. So it's when you do splits or these kind of weird things. This is all requires, or if you do any dance classes, it requires a lot of flexibility, and they give these trainings for many years now. And I started when I was a PhD. I was a sport instructor in the Sport and Culture Center, and I started there, and then I moved towards my own sort of setting that I was renting the studio for giving these classes. And luckily I just found a niche that is I don't have any competitors in that sense, and I really like I think just I like to train people because it brings them health, and I think the health, if you are healthy, everything else around can be settled, and the health is something that really is very precious thing in your life, and you cannot be successful in your career, or you maybe can, but it will be more difficult if you're unhealthy, in any field of your life. It's very important to take care of yourself. So by doing this, I'm taking care of myself, and I'm really happy to share my knowledge and my achievements in that with other people, and they see that I have a lot of followers. And since I realized that it's a really a lot of people are interested in this. And since I'm doing now, it's online because of the corona, I give my classes online. There are many people all over the world who join my class, and I really enjoy to make a difference, to bring some value to people. And there are many colleagues or my partners or collaborators are joining my classes, and I'm really happy that with some people I have this, overlap in the many activities that I do, and people appreciate it and join me doing that.
And actually, I'm also quite impressed with your cognitive flexibility, because you're so fast at switching between tasks. So actually, as far as I'm concerned, you had a stretching class even today that ended just an hour before this webinar. So you probably just took a brief shower and just changed clothes, and then you jumped straight here. So that's quite amazing, like, because I don't know, like some people are able to do this, just change one job quickly, change the clothes and sit down, do another type of job, and it's like I have to take some time for myself. I can't really do that. I think so. Like it's people like that are like robots to me. Like you have to be really disciplined to be able to manage this. So did it take you? I mean, did you have to learn it in the process, or it was natural for you from the beginning?
I think it was more or less natural, and when I look at myself now, I just see that I'm playing a different role. So in my life is a cinema, and then I just change the different roles during the day, and it's a matter of practice. Everything is a matter of practice. So if you do the more and more and more often, at some point you get used to it. And since all of these roles that I'm playing, they are quite natural and they come intrinsically from my own motivation and passion, I'm playing always myself. So one day I play president of the scientific association, another day or hour I play the sport instructor. I also play the role of a daughter, for my mother, and we're all actually doing this. It's just not consciously, you don't see it, but actually all of us, we have a different roles and we behave differently, and you switch constantly, actually talking with a client or talking with your friend, right? You switch, you are not the same with both of these persons. So it just, in my case, it's more, I exaggerated a little bit more. It's more explicit, the change in the roles. But at the end, I think everybody can do that.
Okay, I understand. That's I mean, often like people who are good at something, they don't really know why they are good at it. They just don't really analyze it and don't make any vivisection of it. So maybe it's your natural talent also. Okay, so we still have questions that relate more to your career in consultancy and in pharma. So let's maybe take those questions now. But still, like if that was up to me, I would actually drill more on this entrepreneurial part, because I think it's quite amazing. In a way, it's also very smart in a sense, because you kind of commercialized your training. You would probably spend some time on your cardio or some other training anyways, like, or the stretching just for yourself. So in a way, you found a way to also share what you know, but also commercialize that. So in a way, when you think about it, like you would still spend 24 hours in similar ways, but you actually leverage that time for yourself to actually become a businesswoman on the side. That's really great.
No, but I think all the experiences, they were building up on each other. For example, why I was there to start the stretching as my business, because by establishing the CRS local chapter, I had to go through more or less the same steps. So what do you need? When do you start the company, right? What do you need? You need a website, you need a phone number, you need some sort of accountants, finance, you need to take care of your finance, right? So these are the three, I think, questions that you ask first of all yourself, like, how do I make it in order that people know me, right? You need these three crucial things to take care of your finance. Let the people know that you have your website or some sort of way of communication and people can reach you, And it just, all of the steps I have done, I built the website for the CRS local chapter myself. And then I knew what to do and how much time actually it will take. So if you would ask me a few years ago and say, Natalia, why don't you create your website? I would say, are you crazy? Like, I have no clue how to do that. Now when people ask me, I could say, okay, it will take you from this step to step, it will take you 3 hours. And then, it's when you know how much time you need to invest, it's very relieving, the stress, and then you just go for it. And I attribute one success in one field specifically to another. So without any of these puzzles in my career, I wouldn't be able to create one on another thing.
Yeah, totally. I have the same experience. I first created the foundation and I had to learn about business accounts and sales tax and all these basics about the taxes and Belastingdienst and how it treats companies. And like that also helped me with a company later. So I totally see that. And okay, so there is one question related to this entrepreneurial part, and then let's get back to the consultancy. So the question from Natalia: do you share the entrepreneurial experience when you are in the job search?
Do I share with whom? With the recruiters or the interview? So yes, it's the stretching that becomes now my business was always in my CV in a section of hobbies. So, and it used to be, from like I like doing stretching, and then it's transformed. I give my stretching classes to a group of people, and now I have a name of the company that I run. So it's all, the evolution of how it looked in my CV. That's also changes, and it gets a bit stronger and stronger and stronger. But yeah, I did share when people ask me about questions about my hobby. I was trying to tell this story about my business.
Yeah, actually, I think this is a good question because depending on the recruiter, this can be either your strong side or your weak side. Because I guess that to some recruiters, this is a sign of a very strong self-management skills and very like good, business thinking, which is always good. But to some, it might be an indication that you're not fully focused and that you have other important areas of life professionally, right? So I think it also depends who is reading your CV, if that's taken as an advantage.
I was invited for the interview because a part of stretching, I also do martial arts, so I do Thai boxing, and I was actually invited for the interview because the recruiter was very convinced it was sales position. He was convinced that people who do this type of like fighting sport disciplines that involves fighting, or they are very persuasive. And they have exactly the right skills to be a salesperson. So that was very surprising for me. But he said it's really strengthened my CV, and he really believes that because of my sport attitude, I can apply the same attitude, persuasiveness to the sales.
Well, that's really interesting. I haven't heard of that, but I guess you need determination for both. That's for sure. Okay, so let us now briefly come back to these questions about consultancy. One question we have from Monica is, how do you convince the industry that having a PhD is not a drawback?
Whoa. Well, I would avoid it. I would not try to apply for a position where you have to, justify yourself and convince. But usually, okay, if you come to the point that you have to really justify, you have to be prepared for this question, and you have to draw exactly the similarities between industry and academia that they are there in place. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, maybe my answer was very surprising for Natalia, but I don't really see any like striking difference. We are all human work in academia, in industry. Its communication is always will be the first skill that you need in both. And industry, they have a structure, they have their organization structured in a certain way, and in university you also have. And maybe, if you look in the lab and you just play in the role of only PhD person, you might not see, but actually all the universities have a very extensive structure. You have university calls, you have a rector, you have different faculties, you have institutions, you have a departments, you have a divisions, and you have a groups and PIs, and then you have a postdocs in PhD. So you are actually a part, if you consider yourself in university as a part of a big organization with a great structure, in industry you can also demonstrate your knowledge of the structure of an industry by giving an example of your knowledge of the structure in university. So and there's more examples like that you have during the interview, saying that I had to report to my supervisor, and in industry I will have to report to my manager. It's basically there are many like these examples. For example, I was asked, did I take part in the financing questions and questions about the finance when I was a PhD? And I answered yes, because indeed I had to look for different reagents for example, if I wanted to buy a reagent for my project, I had to justify to my supervisor why I buy this reagent, and am I sure that this is not the highest price, that we can maybe find something alternative. So you also take a decision, right, in finance within your project of PhD, and this is what you do in industry as well. You're trying to find a good product with a good price. And more than that, even that you also sort of contribute to different parts of the group. And if you consider your group as a micro company and look from that perspective, then you will find even more similarities and all of the things that are there.
Okay, great. I also think that it sometimes is good to search for places where there is a lot of PhDs already, because then that's some indication that they are actually familiar with the PhD culture already. So that you will not have to excuse yourself being a PhD, unless you want to go somewhere where PhD is so rare that it gives you some leverage, like some level of
Advantage, yeah.
Advantage, yeah. Something I want to say, like credibility, because sometimes this academic title by your name in some fields can give you credibility, that especially emerging fields, somewhere where there is no established working culture yet. I see that in blockchain sometimes, that if someone that actually blockchain projects like to have at least one PhD on their team often, because that kind of gives more credibility, because in that space there is so much, I don't want to say scam, but like uncertain projects that actually having any stamps of quality, including a PhD title, is already good. So that can be then a completely different case when PhDs are scarce, so that scarcity makes you valuable. Okay, next question. What about your prediction about radiopharmaceutical jobs and business in European countries?
I'll be short here. I don't know. No, really. I mean, I'm just 7 months in industry, and of course, it gives me some overview, but it's not to such a level, especially specific radiopharmaceuticals. I mean, I even work with that at the moment, but what is the future of it, and how does it? I don't have this information. Sorry.
Okay, so we have one more question, guys. If you still have questions, just share them now, because we are soon wrapping up. So think about your questions, and let's maybe do 5 more minutes, and then we slowly wrap up. So next question is from Natalia. How was your experience with recruiters?
Oh, yeah. So the recruiters are the same people. It's difficult relationship with the recruiters, and it's the most I think difficult relationships that I had. There were recruiters or people who rent the apartments, and I usually compare them because it's really difficult to come to an agreement with both, and it's always it can be very interesting discussion with them, but they always need what they want, and it's very. You have to be very careful in what you are saying, and all the information have to be concise and specific, because the goal of the recruiter, I mean, to understand the recruiter and to basically to learn how to communicate with them, you have to always try to imagine that you are in their place, and all of this, what kind of questions they ask, and what do they want, what kind of information they want from you. It might be very controversial, and it's often actually what you say can be at some certain point against you. If you, for example, elaborate too much about yourself, there will be more opportunities to turn it against you. For example, in the stage of the hiring or in the stage of the job offer. So yeah, my experience with the recruiters was completely different. There were some people that were very respectful, and there were some people that were not respectful at all. And there are all the variety. And with the recruiters, I think it's like in any relationship. Actually, you can find the recruiters that suit you well. So when you look for a job, I realized that, okay, these are like a 3 or 4 or 5 people with whom I really enjoy the discussion, and I really feel that they bring value, and they're really sincerely trying to help me in my career. And there are some people who just, they don't care, and you can sense it. And after 1 or 2 or 3 conversations, you realize that they are robots. They are not people on the line. So it's difficult to find the recruiter that suits you well, but once you find it, it's really precious and beneficial relationship for everybody. And recruiters also, I'm sure they meet a lot of people who they dislike, but they still have to deal with these people because they need to hire somebody, right? But at the same time, they also can find the people with whom you really understand each other. And you're not afraid to say something additional, because can be used against you or something. So it's really, if you find your best recruiter, it's a relationship for the lifetime,
Yeah, actually, I can add to this that actually recruiters often also don't look for necessarily the best candidate. So sometimes their job is to find the safest candidate that will be most likely to do the job that they are asked to do at this particular position. And that's sometimes the mental trap that PhDs can get themselves into, because recruiters are not looking for another Elon Musk. They are looking for someone who fits the description as closely as possible, and they are evaluated on that.
Yeah, and also for as many years as possible. So they also like trying to find somebody who will take this role for many years, that they don't have to look for somebody else. And because it's a loss of knowledge if person leaves after 1 year, so they have their own responsibility. And I actually, it's a very hard job. I cannot even imagine how hard it is to be a recruiter. But as I saying, I think it's just about the relationship, about how can you feel each other, and then in this case, then if you able to build a good relationship with your recruiter, it's a good chance that you will build a good relationship with your company.
Okay, so great. So since there are no further questions in the chat, I would like to ask you one final question, which is, do you have some general advice that you would give to young researchers who are still in their PhDs or still considering whether or not to change the career track? Something that you learned in the process, can be anything, really.
Yeah, I think I will just repeat myself again, is just don't expect that it will be easy. Expect that it will require, the job search will require you some time and investment. But at the same time, I think what should motivate you is that as more time you spend, as more likelihood that you will find something that you like, something you're passionate about. And all of this job search is only about what do you want. Okay, so try to twist it in the way that is beneficial for you, not for your company, for your universities, for your supervisor. Just think about yourself, and I think this is the key for success.
Okay, great. Then on that note, I would like to cordially thank you, Natalia, for sharing all these insights with us. Very interesting, and I wish you all the best with your career, especially, especially the entrepreneurial part. That's my favorite one. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for inviting. Wish you good luck, guys.
Yeah, good luck, and thank you guys for joining. Good night.